So moving on to part 5 of my first look at Hitfilm Express. This did go on for quite a while and recorded one big massive take of my first look at the software, and I decided, you know what, I'm not going to just blast that whole 50-minute video at you. I'm going to break it down to you and show you it in parts. So it's definitely worthwhile going back to my previous videos on my first look at Hitfilm Express, as you will learn and see the whole flow of what we're learning and how we got to the point that we are here in this video. Let's see what we learn about it today. Let's have a look at blurs. So a blur is very noticeable and it should make a huge difference to this clip. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the playhead within the clip. Now at this point I'm going to add a radial blur. This should visibly make this shot look slightly different and should give it a circular blur. So I'm going to click and hold and drag. I mean, when you're dragging away from your effect, you can't actually see an icon at all. You wouldn't know if you're holding anything, or if when you're watching somebody, if you're holding anything, until you've actually moved over and hovered onto the clip. And as you can see, it is lighting up green, letting you know that you're about to drop something on the media source within the timeline. So if I let go of my click, that has now been applied, and you can visibly see the effect taking place within our preview window, within our viewer. But how would I actually remove this effect? See, in most softwares, in most editing platforms, you can go up to Edit and you can click Undo. The shortcut is also given for the undo action, which is Command and Z. So we're going to try this shortcut now. Let's click Command and Z. There we have it. We have removed that effect that we've just added. But how do we redo? So redo is Shift, Command and Z. So let's add that radial blur back. We're going to click Shift, Command and Z. We've just added that radial blur back to our media source. Now we have two windows open. The preview window is showing the original media clip, which is selected within the media panel. If we click onto that, you can see that it's selected, it's highlighted. That is what's showcasing here in the left window. In the right hand window, it's showcasing what's happening with our timeline, and this is what will be exported as the final finished piece. Good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to import two additional pieces of media. We're actually going to try and import two at the same time. So I want our audio as well as my still image thumbnail that I've created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and hold my mouse over the top of these two pieces of media. From here, I'm going to click open. See, now at this point, it is taking a while to actually conform, aka change the MP3 to suit our project. It's actually still importing, and you can see that from this icon here, as there is a loading icon taking place over the preview of the piece of media. So now the media is now available, and you can see the preview within the preview window. I think it's quite funny that you can actually see the waveform preview of the audio. Now let's click on the thumbnail. So the thumbnail's looking great. We're going to drag and hold this into the timeline. So it's imported very nicely into our timeline. But you can see that it's actually too big for our project. So the way you would actually change this is to transform the image. So now let's transform the image so it fits within our properties of our project. So it's not too big for our final finished video. The first thing you'd do is you'd actually select, or make sure you've selected. Well, let's click the selection tool. This scroller at the bottom, this is how you zoom in on your timeline. That's very, very, very useful and makes it a lot easier to edit our media. So the first thing I'm going to do now, I've got the selection tool selected, not the drag tool, is I'm going to select our piece of media. Then I'm going to go into controls. From there, you want to go into your control panel. And as you can see from the control panel, you can see the length of the piece of media. You can then see the clip properties, but then you can see transform. So let's click on transform. Oh, and before we actually do, you can actually see that you can add effects natively from the controls, the inspector of your piece of media, which is actually quite interesting. But for now, let's go and click into transform. By clicking the drop down menu, this will then give the position and scale of your piece of media. Now, because the canvas is black, because the background of the player is black, it's actually hard to see when this is at 100% filling the canvas. But one thing I do notice straight away is there's a blue outline on our piece of media, so you can see when it actually fits the window. So that's roughly where I would like it. You can actually change the opacity as well, and that's how visible or invisible your piece of media is. Now let's see what happens when I import my audio, and that would have 3 different types of media imported to Hitfilm Express and added transitions or effects or use the inspector on those media sources. So let's find Charisma, and this is an audio track. We're now going to add this to the front of our project. Now remember, there is only one audio track. So what do we need to do here? If we've got 2 audio sources and you need to layer these up, it means that you need to add another track. The way you can do this is, obviously, if you're adding an audio track, you can first click on it, then press Control, right click, and you can see that it says Insert Track. Now you've inserted another audio track. If we wanted to insert another video track, you would click on your video, then press Control, right click, and Insert Track. Now we have 2 audio and 2 video tracks. We're going to zoom out slightly so we can see what's going on here. Now, some of our video has actually gone missing. This is because our layers have moved. So layer 2 video is now below layer 1 video, which is where all our media sources are. If your audio meters are in the way, you can simply close this window by clicking the X. Now you have more room to work with, especially if you don't need your audio meters, and you can actually shrink down. You don't want to get rid of your browser window at all. You just want to, make it smaller, so you can see more of your timeline, right? So you can see now that there are 2 layers of video, and you can scroll up and down to see those 2 layers that you've created, and the same for your audio. So now I can add my audio as another layer, so I can layer up my audio. So let's bring the playhead to the start of our entire video to see how this looks. So the transition is not attached to the second piece of media, and the addictive dissolve is dissolving on its own and then showcasing our next piece of media. In order to get rid of that transition, you can see that when I'm moving my mouse over the end part of the clip, you can see there is a dark square that I'm not able to click on. If I click on this, or attempt to, and then press the delete button, we have now got rid of that transition. Let's pull the playhead back to see how this now looks. It now goes straight over to the next piece of media, now allowing me to add a transition to these 2 pieces of media if I so choose so. So now I want my audio to stop after the first drop of the music. In order to do that, we have to make a cut to our music. We can do this by selecting a tool from the tool panel here, and this is the slice tool. Now when I've found the part of the media that I want to make a cut of, you just click. Now if I press the selection tool, so we have to actually manually click on the selection tool, and we can actually click on the part of media that we do not want, the media source. Once we've done that, we can then press delete. In order to export, you would just simply click on this button, export here. Let's click it and see what happens. You can then select in and out area. you can see that the timeline has been added to the export queue. Please switch to the export screen and begin exporting. Let's press Go to Export. To the right, you have all of the presets that you currently have for exporting. You can actually create a new preset, and that will give you different parameters in which you can export. You can then see that I've already begun to export because I accidentally pressed the play button down below. I can actually suspend this and stop this from happening, or I can remove the task entirely. Let's click Remove Tasks. If I click Yes, that will then stop the export that is taking place. By setting the in and out duration, this will give you the option of exporting a part of your project instead of the entire project. Don't go anywhere, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you do not miss a thing. See it on the screen right there. Yeah baby, this is AnthonyAllenEdits and I'll see you in the next one. Let's go.